This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
They call me crazy cause I'm facing all my giants. They try to scare me into thinking I can fight it. They tell me I should never even think of trying. But that's just me, I'm gonna live out in defiance.
Welcome, Alphas. Thanks for joining us. We have a fantastic show for you today. Our guest is former Navy SEAL Alden Mills, who is on a mission to help 100 million people be unstoppable, not to be confused with unstoppable. We'll talk more with Alden about his mission in a bit, but first, Stacy's got something.
But first, Joe. But first.
Like I'm twerking, baby.
You guys are both dads, so I thought you'd love it if I shared some little comic missiles with you in the form of some bad dad jokes.
Launch them, baby. Launch them.
Are you ready?
I am.
Here we go. What does a panda ghost eat? Bamboo.
Jeez, don't do that.
How do you know if a mummy is sick?
Oh.
He can't stop coughing.
Oh gosh.
What's a ghost's favorite dessert?
Rocky Road.
Why are vampires easily fooled?
Hold on, what was the answer for the favorite dessert? I didn't hear it.
Ice cream. Ice cream.
Okay, keep going.
Why are vampires easily fooled?
Why?
They are suckers.
And they're born every day.
Ha ha ha. What kind of underwear do mummies buy?
What?
Calvin Klein. Everybody knows that.
Fruit of the tomb.
How do you have a lot of ghost knowledge, Adam, but it seems like legit knowledge and not funny knowledge.
What room does a ghost not need in a house?
A solarium.
Oh my gosh.
You're killing me.
No, Adam.
Stop with your logical answers.
A living room. They don't live, so they don't need a living room.
Oh,
okay.
Gosh.
My last bad dad joke in honor of Halloween. Who won the skeleton beauty contest?
Who?
Nobody.
Oh, no. I have one. Why?
Okay, I got one after you got one.
Okay, good, because I'm a dad. I feel like I need to contribute to this.
Yeah, you got to have one in your back pocket.
Mm-hmm. Why do they put fences around cemeteries? Because people are dying to get in.
Oh, okay. Okay, here you go. Why don't they play poker in the jungle?
Why?
Because there's too many cheetahs.
Cheetahs.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah, shenanigans.
Man, I've had that one in my back pocket for about 20 years.
He's been saving it. He's it tattooed on the underside of his hand.
No, I pull it out occasionally. Right. We need a good dad joke. All right, Alphas, please stick around. We'll be back with some more dad jokes and Alden Mills right after the break.
Attention retired uniformed service members. With open season for enrollment starting November 11th, now's the time to start thinking about your dental insurance needs for next year. Blue Cross Blue Shield FEP Dental has one mission: to provide retired uniformed service members like you with quality dental coverage. Count on a network with dentists in all 50 states and enjoy fully covered in-network preventative care with up to 3 cleanings a year. Take a moment to see what the benefit of blue can do for you. You can learn more at bcbsfepdental.com.
As a veteran, you've done more than your fair share of providing support. Now it's our turn. Introducing the WellCare and the American Legion Partnership and the WellCare Medicare Advantage plans that give you more support, more access, and more benefits in addition to your VA benefits. Visit wellcareforveterans.com today or call 844-917-1165. Ohana Health Plan, a plan offered by WellCare Health Insurance of Arizona, Inc. New Mexico Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan, DSNP members. As a WellCare by Allwell DSNP member, you have coverage from both Medicare and Medicaid. Medicaid services are funded in part by the state of New Mexico. New Mexico Medicaid benefits may be limited to payment of Medicare premiums for some members.
So I was like, wrecked him, dang near killed him. All right, guys. Today we're joined by, Today we're joined by former Navy SEAL Alden Mills. Alden, welcome to the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
Hey, it's great to be here, Joe. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you, Alden. It's been said that you're on a mission to help 100 million people become unstoppable. That's a pretty bold mission and vision. And I got to tell you, as someone who has a bold vision as well, this gets me really fired up, Alden. But before you get into that, can you tell us a little bit about your journey through the military and how you arrived at serving a mission and a vision so bold?
Sure. Things actually started out with me learning how to sit on my butt and go backwards for long periods of time pulling an oar. That got me to the Naval Academy, got through the Naval Academy, and I ended up running into this SEAL. And he's like, "Hey, Mills, you know what SEALs do?" And I was like, "No, what do they do?" And he's like, "Oh, we go around the world and we knock back bullies. If that's something you want to do, come try out." And it turned out SEAL team was the perfect fit for me after 8 years of rowing. I went through 3 platoons as a platoon commander, then went to graduate school, went back in the reserves because I missed it so much. And through a series of ups and downs of starting different businesses and fitness and security and pet food, I found that the most joy I received was helping people do more than they originally thought possible. And for the last 10 years, I've really been building out what I affectionately call as my ministry of helping people be unstoppable at going after their goals. And that's how I am today. And, you mentioned my goal early on of 100 million. That is where I hope my dent in the universe goes when I get finally promoted. And the way I came up with that number was I guesstimated, okay, by the time I die, I'd probably be at about 10 billion. How do you help 1%? And if we go after the 1%ers, there's a great opportunity that a cascading effect can occur of them inspiring others. And one of the places that gives me great joy is helping those that have served go be unstoppable, because I think they're the force multipliers for our society.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
think Stacy's got a follow-up question for you, but let me just say that I love that bold and grand vision, and I think that we need more of that in the world, right now. And I think I was sharing with you, I work in veteran mental health, and we have to have bold visions there, because people oftentimes, are only able to focus on maybe like the next year to 2 years, maybe 10 years. If they give themselves enough permission to say, hey, what could I do in a lifetime, and what would be that grand impact that I would make? So
Yeah.
that really resonates with me. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
So when I was researching your story and your history and everything like that, I came across one of the quotes that you said, and it was to understand that discomfort is a natural part of progress, and that instead of shying away from it, you should embrace it as a stepping stone toward growth and development. Well, it really brought me back to when I first got out of the service. It was 2008. We were in a recession. I was medically retired, so I didn't see it coming. It was from a combat trauma, and so it was a really dark place for me. It was a transition I wasn't really ready for. But I dove into business without any sort of business background, and it was like drinking from a fire hose. I'm curious, what was your transition like? Things that you thought went right, what went wrong, learning experiences, things that you would pass on to newly minted veterans who may be in a similar situation.
Okay, so the first thing that I really want to bring up and make sure we define it for everybody, I feel like I'm still in transition.
Okay.
Right? I left in 1998. I thought, okay, I'll go to business schools to learn a new language. And I was fortunate enough that saved enough and had some family support that I could go for 2 years dedicated to business school. And I remember jumping out of an airplane on Friday, and then on Monday, I'm sitting in a quantitative skills review because I didn't do well in math in college. And the graduate program was making me relearn a whole bunch of math that I'm scratching my head going, did I even learn this in the beginning? This looks like Greek to me. And that first 2 years, I felt every single day I had made a huge mistake. What have I done? Because it was so challenging to make a transition where I was working with people that were focused on a purpose. And now all of a sudden, it wasn't purpose, it was paycheck. And that was the pinnacle. And you know, we all come from a place where the paychecks are published. It's a non-concept, right? If anything, it's just talking about, hey, what are we going to do with our 2-week pay for this month? But it wasn't an area where we were measuring against ourselves. We were measuring against ourselves on how well we performed for our teams. And when I bring up the point that I'm still transitioning, there isn't a day, an hour that goes by that I'm not thinking or referencing something that I did in the military and asking myself, okay, how would I do it here? How would I maintain a standard that I had then as a civilian here? You know, the transition, if we were to break it into big lumps, I'd say it took 5 years, and then they would have a tail to it. That's now, so 5 years would have put me at 2003, and now I'm 21 years from there. So I figure in another 20 years, I'll be fully transitioned at that point. But I really, and I'm not sure I want to fully transition, to be honest with you, Stacy. And I encourage people, and I talk to a lot of vets. Hey, there's so many great things, and how lucky were we to have these experiences that we've had. Don't let go of them. In the beginning, I thought, okay, the Navy SEAL portion of Alden Mills is dead. Time to be Mr. Businessman. And I found actually that was a piece I needed to keep more alive to cope with how civilians were not coping with what they were dealing with. So I know it's probably a roundabout way of answering that question, which I think is a very important question to people, but I wouldn't beat anybody up about, hey, take your time on the transition and don't you dare throw out the baby with the bathwater, because there's so many wonderful things that have happened to us during the military that our country alone needs more of in the civilian sector.
Thanks.
I love that. I love what you're doing. So, you know, in the military, one of the things that you learn when you start, you know, learning how to shoot and learning how to live is to have specific goals. And so one of those things that we learn is that aim small, miss small. Well, you know, in a weird sort of way, your ambition towards what you're trying to do to reach 100 million people, that's not a small goal at all, but it is a very specific goal. And so what you've got is even if you don't hit that number, the impact that you have is incredible, because you're aiming towards something so ambitious that your goal is always focused on hitting that, and you're always pushing towards that, and you have such a specific way that you have to think when you're thinking that big. You know, some people get caught up in generalities. I just want to make a difference, and they don't. They're unfocused. So, you know, when it comes to things like improving yourself and improving others, you have to be specific and purposeful with your goals. And so, you know, in your Navy SEAL career and in your business ventures, you've had to bring out the best in others. But I'm curious, who or what was it that you think most pulled out the best in you? Was it a leader? Was it a teacher? Because I want to know more about the people or moments that impacted your personal growth, because you don't just go from being a normal guy, even somebody who rowing boats, you know, for 8 hours a day and do what you've done without some pretty impactful moments or people in your life. And I want to know about that.
Ooh, Joe, another meaty question here. We might have to brew another cup of coffee on this one here. You're 100% correct. In my most recent book, Unstoppable Mindset, I write in the foreword, I am a compilation of a whole group of people that I've been blessed to learn from, to step on their shoulders from. And I list off a handful of them. My mom, number one, right? Diagnosed with asthma at the age of 12, tells the doctor, says, hey, he needs to learn the game of chess and lead a less active lifestyle. Mom, no one defines what you can do but you. I'll get you that medicine, but you got to go deal with this. And, she kept saying it again and again and again. Having this amazing teacher called William H. Armstrong, wrote 33 books, Sounder, Bridge Over Troubled Waters. He introduced me to Herodotus, the Greek philosopher, and key elements. He had these two quotations over his desk. Before the gates of excellence, the high gods have placed sweat. If a man does only what is required of him, he is a slave. The moment he does more, he is a free man. Those are from two different philosophers. And obviously we can take out man and put in person today, but that's how it was, 2,000 years ago. Yeah. My rowing coach, one of the great rowing coaches of our generation, and pushing you beyond what you originally thought was physically possible and getting you down into a pain cave and realizing that was nothing more than a stepping stone to unlock your potential. SEAL commanding officers, only ever be as tough as the situation dictates. How to serve your men, your troops, your teammates, entrepreneurs, different professors, my children, a whole slew of different things. And, I recently came across this quotation, and I would say, yes, I've been very lucky to meet some very exceptional people, but it isn't just people that give you the teachings, it's your experiences. There was this quotation that came from T.S. Eliot that I heard a couple of weeks ago, right before giving a speech, and it was the CEO introducing me. And he basically paraphrased T.S. Eliot and said, how sad is it for the people who go through the experience but miss the meaning? Think about that, right? How many different experiences have we all had going through the military, as an example, and thinking, oh, that just sucked. But there was a meaning behind any one of those that could be an awesome opportunity for us to learn at the same time. And when you sit down to write a book, and by the way, I believe everybody has at least one book in them, you start to really have to reflect, hey, where were my transformational moments, which is what you're really asking about. And what did you learn from that you adopted as a new behavior, and it turned into a new habit for you to make you better than you were before? And when you go through that process, it can be very powerful to help you think about, oh, I'm going to start looking at each new experience I have in life and look at that meaning. Just like Stacy brought up a moment ago about, she used a quotation to me about getting out of the comfort zone and how to embrace that. A lot of the experiences we had in the military were friction experiences, right? Yeah. They were frustrating for us. They hurt. They felt like they were huge setbacks. But then we look at that friction and we go, hey, wait a minute. Friction is actually where we get forward progress. If our car's wheels are just sitting on ice and spinning, we got no friction. We need that friction. We need getting out of the comfort zone. And all the great people in my life, they put me out of the comfort zone. They challenged me to go further. And I guarantee you, everybody who's listening, you have those same great moments in your life. Take a moment, think about those, and jot a few of those down and what you learned, and then practice it with others.
Yeah,
two things to add there. Sorry, Stacy. What's the old Navy saying? Smooth skies makes poor Apache pilots.
Yeah, I'm sure it's. Yeah.
Is that directed at Adam?
Yeah,
So-
I think that's what it was. But the other thing is you talk about processing those experiences that we have, those friction experiences, and I attribute my entire mental health to the time I spent processing what I went through in Fallujah. And I found, and something that I say, it sounds a little dramatic for most experiences, but I think it works for a lot of people. And you sound like a guy who likes quotes, so I wanted to give you one that that you could think about, and that's if you don't learn to use your experiences, they will use you instead.
Ooh.
We have no control over ourselves.
Who said that?
That's me.
Oh, Joe. Bam. Boom.
I got
I
you.
like
Bud.
that.
You can have
yes,
it,
brother. Thank you for sharing that.
but I'm sure somebody somewhere has said something to that effect. But
Nope,
that, I mean, that's
it's
my
Joe.
personal mantra. I mean, I spent a year and a half in the hospital. I lost. I was running across a bridge trying to get to a vehicle and got hit with a roadside bomb on an overpass. Put my own tourniquet on, and took care of business, and got home to my 3-month-old daughter I'd never met, and that all sounds so crazy, but wow, what a like, I have that in my backpack and I can use that now. It doesn't
Amen.
use me. I don't lose sleep over this. This is something that I can use to do things to share with other people. And what you've done and what you're doing is, and having that impact really resonates with me. And I want to let you know how much it means to me that you've taken what you've been through and you've learned to use it the same way. It makes me feel connected to people when I meet other people who try to do that.
Listen, I just got goosebumps. I had a coach who would say, "Hey, goosebumps or truth bumps?" And I will tell you that incident that you so courageously led yourself through, that's turned you into much greater force multiplier. I can only imagine how well you connect with others on that incident, right? And now you're using that experience for a wealth of gratitude and generosity to others. That's to me the greatest joy I get. And I didn't have that experience. You have a very unique experience. Stacy has a very unique experience.
Yeah.
Adam has a very unique experience. And each one of you become those force multipliers when you're able to extract the meaning and give the message to your own kind of form of ministry, to tell people, hey, this is how we can overcome this obstacle and use it to our advantage.
Well, and I love what you said too, really highlighting the point about friction. Like we need friction. Like we need those challenges. We need those struggles to be able to refine us, like a metal into our purest form. And I would also argue that nobody ever accomplished anything worth writing a book about from the comfort of the couch at home.
Yeah,
And
right.
certainly not so in the entrepreneurial realm. And I kind of wanted to go there a little bit and spend a little bit of time, because you've had these great leaders that you've been able to receive from. You went and had this incredible, academy and military experience. You're still in your transition from the military, but in that transition, you've done some pretty amazing things. One of which is Perfect Fitness, a company that you took from 0 to 63 billion in sales with an eventual acquisition by a private equity firm. So there's a lot of our listeners and a lot of military folks and veterans, when they get out and transition, go into that entrepreneurial realm. So I was just thinking, what are some things that you could share from maybe the Perfect Fitness that you think would be relevant, and maybe pulling from the friction standpoint, maybe that there was a time in that journey that really stands out in your mind where things got really hard. And again, pulling from what you said, you were able to default back to some of your prior, training to be able to navigate the complexities of that, maybe more so than you hadn't. But really, anything you'd like to share about that kind of entrepreneurial challenges of growing and scaling a business ultimately into being acquired.
Here's where I'll start. In every platoon, we had a platoon mission statement. And your question is asking me about correlating back to what I used out of my military training to help me be a successful entrepreneur. Is how I'm thinking about that question. And one was right from the get-go, establishing it with just a blank piece of paper when I had nothing. Hey, what is it that I want to build? Who is it that I want to help? Who do I want to serve? And I created this concept called the perfect promise. And the perfect promise was all about the idea of, if we can help you take control of your body, you'll learn to take control of your life. It's the same tools.
Mm-hmm.
So let's create a vehicle that will inspire you to take control of your body. Newsflash, you don't need a lot to take control of your body. What you need is inside here, right? In your heart, to drive the two of you to find that connection of passion and purpose together. But that became the call sign. And that was part one, developing a mission statement that I felt like, okay, this is something I'm willing to go all in on. And when I'd say all in, I visualized jumping out of the back of a C-130 for a halo jump, and we're just going head first, right? We have to commit all in. That's part two. You have to go all in. Don't half-ass whatever it is you want to go after. I don't care if you want to be the best plumber, best HVAC company, best coffee shop, best cybersecurity company, whatever it is, commit. Just like you're jumping all in. Part three was find a swim buddy. In SEAL team, it's a swim buddy. In the Army, in the Marine Corps, it's a battle buddy. In the Air Force, in the Navy, Air, it's a wingman, a wing person. Get somebody who is really good at the things you suck at. Be brutally honest about the things that you like and the things that you're terrible at. And I was pretty good at that early on because there were so many things I sucked at that it wasn't difficult for me, because business school let me know right away how terrible I was with numbers and things. And those three things allowed me to create the snowball effect that attracted other people. And by the way, everyone thinks, oh, hey, he's the one that invented the perfect push-up. I'll take credit for sketching it out on a napkin, but it was about 25 of us that brought that to market. And it wasn't the first product, right? The first product was that, where I raised $1.5 million and then learned $1,475,000 worth of ways not to launch that product. And it was only after literally looking at bankruptcy in the face and putting a very tight timeline of, hey, we'll try and do this in 90 days and overcoming all kinds of objections, that 87 days later, we launched the perfect push-up. But all of those things were really based on those first three fundamentals.
Find out who you're serving and what you're serving.
Yeah, create your mission statement.
And find the right people, right? Your battles to be able to go.
Yeah, but start with a swim buddy, just one. You just need one, right? You get that dynamic going, and then you can build out your fire team. Your fire team of two more people, right? SEAL team, it goes from a swim pair to a fire team to a squad, which is 8 people, to a platoon, 16. And for the longest time, we stayed between a fire team and a squad to get to, we did nearly 100 million in sales in 2.5 years.
Wow.
Well, one thing you said, you said a lot, but I want to hone in on, you got funded for 1.5 million, found, what was it? 1,450,000.
Yeah.
$1,475,000 worth of ways not to launch that product.
Right. So you were at a critical inflection, and most people say like, oh, look, we hit this milestone. We got this funding. Like, look at us. Like, we're going, like, we're successful, but it wasn't that right product market fit, just yet. But I almost guarantee that runway that you had of that iteration and working on that almost led to the point where you're talking about, collapse and failure, could not have sprung into what came next had you not been able to follow that trajectory to that point. And so I guess what I want to highlight is, like, there's periods and times where You think you're on the peak, right? You think you've reached the top, you think you've reached that milestone, and then things start going kind of south on you. And that's where the mental fortitude and those previous experiences, that's where you knowing the mission that you're serving and reminding yourself that you're all in this until there is nothing else. And even then you're going to keep going. Why? Because you've surrounded yourself with the right people. And then something special, then you set the conditions for something special to happen.
Right. And part of setting the conditions for something special is, and this is where the military teaches us, is the power of consistency, of showing up, looking the same way with the same haircut, right? Being squared away, being on time, being there 5 minutes early, being brutally honest of what works and what doesn't work. You know, all the tactical things. We literally incorporated after action reports and sit reps into our vernacular. People would know, like, oh, I got to go give Millsy a sit rep today on what they're doing. And these are civilians. And I would tell a story of being in a submarine. I'm like, look, I had to do a sit rep every day on these particular things. I want to hear a sit rep. If you're over in China, how can we support you? What's happening over there? You're down in Australia, help me. You're over in London, because at one point we had grown to these different areas. And they're all there. You just have to look at it from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk a little bit about what types of like personal sacrifice is invested in this as well, because you know I get a lot. I mentor a lot, and a lot of younger folks look at what I've accomplished and say, "Oh, can you give me what the secret sauce is? What is the magic equation? And can I just sprinkle a little bit over my life and make it happen?" And you know, I say, well, there was a lot that, as you've mentioned, that happened in my life that led up to what my successes are. You know, these
Right.
experiences that only I had experienced in my youth that led up to my young adult life, my military experiences that culminated, and what I've dedicated in terms of self-sacrifice. But also, you're a very quotable individual, and I found another quote that I think is important to this part of the conversation. And you said, in life, it's easy to let external factors dictate our boundaries, but the truth is our limitations are self-imposed, and we often underestimate our potential and allow doubts to hold us back. And so I think and also what are we self-imposing in terms of our own self-sacrifice? Are we willing to give up our Sunday watching football on a Sunday, to achieving our goals? And that's the thing when I'm asking somebody who I'm mentoring is, you know, finding a work-life balance is important, but are you willing to forego a Sunday football sit down with your family to achieve a goal, or what you're willing to invest in? So do you have any tips for people who are setting out to achieve goals and finding that balance where they're not going to be, you know, losing hair or losing sleep, but also achieving those goals? What type of balance do you recommend?
I feel attacked with the hair thing, by the way.
Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, really?
He's wearing a hat, so
Why?
nobody would ever know.
Why? Oh,
It's because of the shine.
No, you're good. You're good. Can I get a prop
really?
to answer your question, Stacy? You just made me think of something. Okay,
Yeah.
hang on one second.
So for all of you who are listening on the podcast version only, or you're not on YouTube, our wonderful guest is going to get us a prop, and I will be doing my best, going to give you a visual, or he'll give you a visual.
I'm gonna give you a couple of visuals here. I'm so glad to hear you mentor people. That is so critically important. I do the same. I do a lot of executive coaching, and people will say exactly the same thing. Hey, just give me the magic pill, right? And you hit the nail on the head. What are you willing to sacrifice? This idea of balance, to me, is a dangerous concept. Balance is implying that, oh, we're going to true up at the end of each day or the end of each week. Oh, yeah, I had this much work, but I was low on fun, and now I'm going to go over on fun, and we'll be balanced out. If we're really deciding to go after something, the best we're going to get is a blend. We're going to blend being responsible leaders, and we have lots of different leadership roles. We have the leadership role of our family, of our community. We have a financial leadership role. We have a physical leadership role of our own bodies. But when it comes to the leadership role of being the provider, of doing something that's not just providing for our family, but providing for our soul, we have to decide, what are we willing to sacrifice? Now, how do we do that? And I will literally, and I bring people through this, right? I talk about these little unstoppable goals of the week. I make this little sheet and say, okay, you write out this week, give me the times of the day when you, let's say your new goal is, I'm going to write my book. I'm finally going to write my book. I've been talking about it for 20 years. Okay, what day, each day, at what time are you going to write that out? And I want you to give it to me on Sunday night. This is a week's worth of scheduling. And it's a little sticky sheet. And then you're going to fill out this little card, just a little daily action card. And you're going to do that goal before you do any of the tasks. Tasks are on one side. And by the way, you don't need to get these from me. Just take a 3x5 card and write them out. Just take your notebook and create a goal notebook. But some people like the structure of that. But you have to be willing. You brought up the example. Okay, you like NFL football, but on Sundays, you have to go get training from the master plumber down the street, or you're looking to take over a franchise and you've got to go talk to some franchise people. You're giving up your NFL Sundays, folks, if that's what it's about. And you're probably going to miss a couple of football games along the way for little Johnny or Susie's volleyball game. But you're doing this for the long term. It's not forever, but you're going to have to start to build a new habit of creating something in your life that you haven't done before and letting something else go. Yeah. And that is the first step of developing a new behavior that's going to help you accomplish something new to you. That's the challenge. When you ask people to go after something new to you, this is the whole thing about helping people be unstoppable, mentoring people, whatever. When people are saying, I want to go do something new, I want to go achieve something I've never achieved before. Well, guess what? You're going to have to do things that you've never done before. And we're going to have to talk about those. And there are going to be 3 major obstacles that you're going to deal with. Number 1, starting. Just writing it down and deciding, I'm going to start working on my book Monday morning from 6 to 7 in the morning, and I might only get 2 sentences. You might not get any. You might just get a draft of a table of contents of a chapter. But we're going to do it on Monday, and we're going to do it again on Tuesday, and we're going to do it again on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, and we're going to keep going. And oh, by the way, go back to military training. How did we start off when it came to learning how to parachute jump, or learning how to do CQC, or combat diving, or driving a mini sub? These were all things that I learned, but everyone else did different things. Got to start somewhere, but you have to start scheduling that. And then the second big obstacle is you try and you fail a couple of times. And you go, see, I knew I was never going to achieve it. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because I believe I couldn't do it in the first place. That's the second big obstacle where people give up. And then the final one is when they get tired. Oh my God, I've been doing this for the last 3 months and I've only got 550 words done on my book. I suck. I can't do it. And Captain Negativity creeps in and you drop the anchor and you get stuck in the muck. So.
Yeah. Well, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, you get me fired up on that.
No,
it's a very important topic.
It is.
I mean, it sounds to me like you need to be very careful with your goals especially if you're willing to sacrifice these things. You need to, sitting down and doing what you're willing to give up. It's almost like when you go to buy a house, like you have to sit down and go, what is our hard no? What's our unicorn? What does the perfect house look like for us? And on that list, what are the main things we're looking for? And what are the main things where we will not, like we got young kids, cannot have a pool no matter what. There cannot be a pool. It's too dangerous. So it sounds to like you really need to be very self-aware with your goals and know what your limitations are before you get into something like this. I mean, maybe some people are trial by fire, like to figure it out as they go along, but it sounds like you really do need to be careful with your goals as well as your, the structure of your tasks and your scheduling.
Okay, so I'm going to warn everybody. I'm a huge goal setting geek. And, Adam brought this up in the very beginning. Alden, what an amazing goal, 100 million people. Okay, you're catching me 20 years in to that journey, right? If you had talked to Alden 20 years ago, my goal would be, hey, I want to create a 60-minute speech. I want to finish my first book, which, by the way, I don't think I can write because I've never gotten higher than a B in English. And I used to have English teachers tell me, why don't you go learn math? Because you're never going to be worth anything as writing. And we all have those narratives in our head, right? So I want everyone in the audience to think, hey, you don't have to go out there tomorrow and be like, hey, let's go help 100 million people. Let's set a goal that's in the direction of where you're dreaming, and let's chip away at it. In the world of shooting guns, what we're talking about is being a machine gunner instead of a sniper. A machine gunner walks the bullets in on target. It's going to miss a target first, right? But we know that we can keep walking those bullets in. The sniper sets up and waits for all the perfect condition. Boom! Missed a target. And if you don't really have a good spotter, you're not even going to know how you missed a target. So take it easy on yourself. And I'm not asking you tomorrow, give up every Sunday for the next 6 months. I want you to give up 30 minutes. And I want you to give up something you were used to doing so you can make room for the new thing that's important in your life.
I love that. And I think that it, like you said, that 20 year, you're looking for a different house than you were when you were 18 years old. You're looking for different things. But since we're at the tail end here, I wanted to do something a little bit different.
That's a bummer. I was just getting started.
We'll have to book you for a follow-up session. But since I've got the last question here, I wanted to ask you something a little off topic, but I think it's an interesting question. Have you personally ever felt like you were born in the wrong time? Like I know it feels like I'm romanticizing a bit, but I feel like I always would have felt really fulfilled in the early American West, as long as I could avoid like consumption. But if you could choose a time and a place in history to spend 1 year, you seem like somebody who looks for experiences as growth. I'm curious, if you had to choose a time and a place to spend 1 year of your life, where would you go and why?
I have never been asked that question, and it has to be backwards facing, right?
Hey, you know what? I think it says a lot to be somebody's like, hey, what
get
does...
in a DeLorean and you have to go back to the future. Where would you go?
Right.
Well, to be fair, he does go to the future. So are we
Yeah,
talking
he does go
anywhere
to
on
the future.
timeline? So
and sorry to throw you.
Okay,
it's an odd question.
You were quoting Greek, so maybe you want to go to ancient Greece.
I was going to say that my mind first went to the Greeks,
the philosophers sitting in caves
yeah,
thinking
part
about
of
things.
The philosophers. Maybe it'd be cool to see what was going on in Sparta at the time.
Yeah. You might have to fight if you're there for a year, though.
There's a very particular time period in Greece that was really interesting. That I'm not going to get his name correct. It's Thucydides, and he was the first one that democratically convinced the Greeks to vote on raising and building a navy that could take on the Persians. I'd like to go back during that time period because it changed the Mediterranean landscape because they were successful at doing it, and they got the entire Greek society behind giving a portion of their income to funding the Navy.
Nice.
That's where I'd like
Cool.
to go.
All right.
I'd like to see him in action. I'd like to
Yeah.
see how he did that.
Hey, thanks for taking the odd question. I'm always curious where
For him,
people's,
I love it.
yeah.
Where would
and
you go? You just the Midwest, or
honestly, if I wanted to be useful, I feel like I would go back to the American Revolution. If I wanted to learn, if I just wanted to learn it, we know so little about prehistoric, like Gilgamesh, things. I just would love, or even like the Aztecs and the Mayans. I mean, I would love to see how these societies functioned.
Yeah, as long as you
ancient
came back as
civilizations.
like high on the pecking order in some of those.
Yeah.
I was
I
gonna
think
say,
it'd be pretty rough.
as a woman, there weren't a lot of really great timelines for women in history.
No.
But
Unless
there,
you're Cleopatra.
yeah,
I'd go to war for that.
there was like a tribe of kings that were women in Africa. That would be really interesting to go back and
You'd make a good Amazon,
Yeah.
Stacy.
really, yeah, I could be an Amazonian queen or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. Yeah, cool.
Well, I would go back to before when Joe asked this question and urge him to ask me another question.
Well played, Adam. Well
That would,
played.
that would be my
son of a gun.
contribution to humanity. Well, Alden, we really appreciate the time we've spent with you today. We're going to have your social media handles in our show notes and website. But is there anything else that you want to share with our alphas, our listeners, that we haven't covered today? And we've covered a lot of ground, and we've even gone back to ancient history too. So there's not a lot left on the table.
Against our will.
I think the number one thing I want to share with everybody is you are more powerful than you realize. And you have all the God-given tools. I write about it at length in Unstoppable Mindset. You got these controllables, and you can do so much more than you might believe you can at this moment. And you may be going, yeah, but I don't have this problem, or I have this problem, this problem. I'm here to tell you, you define what you can or can't do. And when I boil leadership down, and I'll speak in front of large audiences, they're like, hey, well, how do you define leadership? It's deciding what I can or can't do. Because once you decide what you can or can't do, you're going to start to magnetize others to whatever that decision is. So be very aware of what you decide you can or can't do, because it will infect others. And I'm here to tell you, you can do more than you originally thought possible.
That's amazing. Alden, it was a real treat chatting with you today. Thanks for coming on the show.
Awesome to be with you, Stacy, Adam, Joe. Thank you for the thoughtful questions and how you put this all together. It's been such a treat for me.
Absolutely. Alphas, hey, take Alden's tip and get his book and start working on your own. So in the meantime, stick around. We've got some scuttlebutt for you right after the break.
Be willing to show up for your veteran, your friend, your loved one. Be willing to trust your gut, follow your heart, take a risk. Be the one willing to ask, to guess wrong, to even offend another, to keep them safe, to remind them that they are valuable. If you know a veteran, be the one to reach out and make them a part of your life.
Okay, alphas, we insist that you had a great time. Whether you did or not, you had a great time. Get it? And now it's time for some scuttlebutt.
Today, we're celebrating some of my high-flying predecessors, the U.S. Army air ambulance crews that operated in Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War. These pilots have been cleared to receive the Congressional Gold Medal for their heroic life-saving military service. Efforts to secure the medal, Congress' highest award, were launched years ago. The Senate passed the legislation in May, and the House of Representatives followed suit in September. President Biden signed it into law on September 26. The Dustoff crews of the Vietnam War Congressional Gold Medal Act recognizes the pilots, crew chiefs, and medics who served honorably during the Vietnam War abroad helicopter air ambulances. The legislation says the helicopter crews are credited with the evacuation of about 900,000 people, American troops and Vietnamese and Allied forces from 1962 to 1973. Helicopters were used for medical evacuations in the closing months of World War II and during the Korean War, but air medical evacuation became widely used during the Vietnam War, with so-called Dustoff crews dedicated to missions of rapidly transporting the wounded to field hospitals. It was dangerous work with a high rate of aircrew casualties and loss of aircraft. Highly skilled and intrepid Dustoff crews were able to operate the helicopters and land them on almost any terrain in nearly any weather to pick up wounded, the Gold Medal Act says. The vital work of Dustoff crews required consistent combat exposure and often proved to be the difference between life and death for wounded personnel. I can say, just growing up in the aviation community, that the Vietnam pilots, many of these guys are instructor pilots, in flight school, and what they went into and exposed themselves in small arms fire, both for insertion, air assault missions, and then the Dustoff Medevac. Sometimes these guys would go in 6-7 times to a hot LZ, coming back with all sorts of bullet holes and things going wrong on the aircraft. And, you're a young 20-something, learning to fly, and you're trusting this machine and all these counter rotating parts and pieces to defy the laws of physics to keep you in the ground, and hearing these stories and just look at them as the greatest, heroes, to be able to have like the cojones, to be able to go into those environments to do what was needed. And it's always the stories of like, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do more. I haven't done enough. Man, those are the shoulders of the giants that I stood on. It's incredible and well deserved.
Those people are built different. Those are the stories that when I watch, when I read their medal certifications for like Medal of Honor, things like that, it just seems insane. It seems like what inside of a person says, I need to keep going. I need to keep going. And everything that I've been through, like I've seen little moments of that, but I wonder what it's like to do that 7 times.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Instead of just a time or two where there's still the illusion of self-preservation. Because I tell my kids, a Medal of Honor is when you do something selfless that will kill you. Whether you live through it or not is completely irrelevant. But you do something with complete disregard and acceptance of the loss of your own life in order to serve others. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, I got to meet Bruce Crandall a while back, and he's one of my heroes. And
Nice.
Him alongside all the other aviators in Vietnam. I mean, it takes a lot of mettle. And anybody who served in Vietnam, I mean, I can't even imagine. But anybody who's listening who served in Vietnam, welcome home. Thank you for your service. Thank you for all you do. And we love you very much.
We'll have links for that in the show notes. And I wanted to talk a little bit. We've heard a lot of stories about the heroic efforts of we're talking about people, but not everybody is in war when they have to step up and do something great. And we've heard stories about the heroic efforts of so many who've come to the aid of those in the path of hurricanes Helene and Milton. But I do want to share this one from Southern Living about 2 Duke Energy linemen who went above and beyond to restore power to Asheville VA Hospital. So during the storms, these surgeries and things like that, some of these hospitals are backed up for months trying to get people in. And when something like this happens and shuts, it could cost somebody their life. These generators, I don't care what kind of generator you have, it's going to be hard to run a hospital on it. And so, we've got some pretty incredible people here. Matt Martinka, a journeyman lineman from the Asheville area, and line apprentice Nathan Curley volunteered to do the difficult work of restoring power to the Asheville VA Medical Center. I heard in the office there was a chance we could get the VA hospital back on, and I come from a long line. My dad, my grandpa, all my nieces. I was Air Force. My son is a Marine. So I said, hey, I want this, recalls Martinka in a video made by Duke Energy. I told my apprentice, and we were like, let's get this one for the VA. Man, what an incredible way to sort of step in and serve again. But what followed was anything but ordinary, because washed out roads, downed trees, and general mess left behind by the catastrophic storm. The two were required to hike 1.5 miles into the mountainous terrain of Asheville to diagnose the problems and bring energy back in the hospital. So anybody who ever runs in the city, you think 1.5 miles, that's not bad. It's, a couple of blocks, right? Go to the mountains, do 1.5 miles in the mountains. It'll change your life, walking through, even on trails and stuff. It's no joke. Of course, everything's hard for me. I got one leg, but trying to find a place to get in was the hardest part because of all the flooding and the up and down terrain that was covered in bushes to our chest, Martinka said. We finally got to a flat, but it was a washed out area from the flood. So every step, you're almost losing your boots to the mud. It actually made it kind of hard to climb because I had so much mud on my boots, and it was worth it, but it was worth it to get there. So, you can imagine it's already slippery, and then all the little cracks in your boots that are supposed to be there to help you get a grip, smooth as butter, baby. So in the aftermath, though, of Hurricane Helene, energy companies have scrambled to rebuild the infrastructure of poles, transmissions lines, and substations knocked out or washed away by floodwaters and high winds. Curley said he was happy to be a part of the efforts to return power to the VA center. I feel like in our own way, we gave back. These guys have given so much, and in our way, we gave it back to them, Curley said. Bravo, Zulu. I absolutely love people who step up to take care of people. Veterans are not, but it does make it a little special that this was a VA medical center.
Yeah, that's cool. Well done.
We'll have notes in the show notes as well. I mean, links in the show notes. Me no talk good.
No.
No
Okay.
notes.
So it's the 20th anniversary of the privatization of base lodging on many installations. But I think we all remember a time before things went swanky. You know what I'm saying? Because at some point in our careers, we've overnighted at some less than savory base hotels.
Pre-schwank.
Nearly 2 decades ago, the Army privatized lodging exclusively with IHG, aka Holiday Inn, Candlewood Suites, and the Staybridge Suites, which is, again, pinkies out, kind of swanky for the military. They now serve over 40 military installations throughout the U.S. and Puerto Rico to equate to over 40 million room nights for personnel and their families, retirees in need of lodging. Wow. That is some special kind of special. So now, not to hate on anybody who's getting the benefits of that swanky hotel lodging, I thought I would hate on them a little bit by going down the Reddit rabbit hole. So in honor of the dodgy style base lodgings of old, I took that trip down Reddit and dug up some of these gems from some of my fellow Redditors. At Swally Z06 said, if you ever want to study the habit of the American cockroach, then I highly recommend Keesler Inns. Thank you. At Baby LT said, quote, DTS continues to think I owe them $2,400 for a one-night stay on base that I paid $90 for. Don't worry, Baby LT. We got you covered.
Jeez.
Oh,
That's how
I don't
DTS
know
makes all
about
its
this.
money.
I don't know about this handle, you guys, but I'm just gonna come out and say it. At Yoke Yanker. I don't know if they're a fighter pilot or if they're yanking somebody else.
Isn't that isn't there a yoke on like cows or something? Like
I don't know, Joe. What kind of yoke are you talking about?
That's
Hey.
it. It's probably a farmer.
Okay. Who's ever yoke you're yanking, yoke yanker? They said, quote, during a TDY, I kept a wolf spider as a pet for about a week, which I fed cockroaches. He was a generally cool dude who stared at me from the corner of my bathroom. It was a nice relationship that we had. The housekeeper eventually killed him. Rest in peace, Wolfie. Rest in peace.
Quick
So he was
question though.
definitely a Marine.
Have you
Yes?
ever had a buddy spider before?
No, can't
We
say
had
that.
one in our window. We didn't open the window, but it ate so many bugs. We were like, when we were sad when he finally died. We needed a new one. It was killed anything that tried to get in our house,
Nice.
including 3 neighbors.
Oh, okay. At Gunther, which is a pretty normal handle compared to Yokanker, shared, quote, stayed in lodging at the Air Force Base, started having terrible allergies in the desert. Turns out my AC filter was about 3 years old. To add insult to injury, however, they replaced it, air quotes, and instead of actually replacing it, they just flipped it around. Think about that for a minute.
Yeah, because it was only half used.
Yeah.
Okay, that's true. Just like in the
Mhm.
Marines, you after day 7, you turn your underwear inside out.
I was just thinking about that, Adam. I figured that would be your
You guys
modus
wear underwear?
operandi. Okay. The final thought
To
from
hold the sand
Reddit
in.
Rabbit Hole goes on, and this is on the upside. From, and get this, PM Your Dad Jokes said, quote,
We got some.
Navy Lodging ran the building on Camp Victory when I was there back in 2008. One of the senior airmen spent an entire 6-month rotation in senior NCO billeting because the Navy team thought a senior airman was equivalent to a senior chief in the Navy.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
That is tremendous. And hey, alphas, if you're into Reddit rabbit holes like I am, come check us out. You can check us out at subreddit/Tango Alpha Lima and join the conversation. Tell us about your awesome old school billeting experiences. Get us on the thread. Go down the Reddit rabbit hole.
I like rabbits. So on season 5, episode 235, Stacy and I talked about Halloween costumes, both good and bad, young and old. Like sexy Harley Quinn that I'm going to be this year. So whether you have kiddos dressing up as G.I. Joe or Master Chief, or you and your friends are going to be Maverick and Rooster, we want to see if your costumes, we want to see your costumes leading up to Halloween. So do us a favor. Stacy just mentioned our subreddit, but it's Reddit/r/Tango Alpha Lima. And we might just feature you and your costume on the podcast.
I'm all
Come
about
stop
that.
by.
Let's see those costumes.
Show me what you
All
got.
right, alphas. Thanks for listening. You could subscribe to our podcast, our newsletter, or send us mail and guest recommendations at legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima. We'll see you next week.